Coming up on TekThing, is it safe to buy a GPU that was used for mining? 1.1.1.1. Let's talk about Cloudflare's new DNS service, what to look for in a new VPN, and mountains. All coming up on TekThing. Thank you, patrons. Without your support via patreon.com/TekThing, we wouldn't be able to make the show for you each and every week. Join the crew that makes TekThing possible at patreon.com/TekThing.
I'm Shannon Morse.
And I'm Patty Norton.
And this is TekThing, where we have something useful in every single show.
Yes, we do.
Especially today.
Oh my goodness.
Lots of very interesting news coming out today.
I also got to say, it hasn't rained in several days, which has really buoyed my mood.
Oh man, I love the sunshine. Word from the studio updates and upgrades. We are working on the lighting. We're going to add a couple of more lights because we know that we are a little bit dark. And we are also going to be updating this to our new logo. And we ordered some soundproofing, or sound dampening, I should say, for the ceiling. So we won't have that audio bounce that makes us sound like
this
we're in a phone booth, I believe.
1,000 years ago. People sorry.
So lots is happening with the studio. We can't wait to share the upgrades with you as soon as they come in and are finished. Lots is happening. Lots of things. There are also things.
GPUs. Remember GPUs? Shannon bought a GPU.
I did buy a GPU, finally.
It was like a bargain at merely twice the MSRP for the GPU.
So ridiculous, but at least I got one.
Yeah, and it's interesting to take a look. Let's take a look at this EVGA GeForce GTX 1070, and oh my goodness!
Oh wow!
That peaked out. It did basically holiday shopping, Bitcoin mayhem peaked out around the tail end of December. And look at that, it's down to $600, which is still way over the MSRP.
A lot better though than what we have been seeing. So
and
that's good.
if you go into Newegg, these are all GPUs that are in stock that are flying by. They are all significantly more than the MSRP, but we're looking at like twice the MSRP rather than 3x. And for me, because I've been waiting to do, I have this new Super Mini ITX case, but I can't have a GPU longer than 215 millimeters. And there were none of those posted for a while. And
it's
look,
very important.
1080s, 1070s, 1060s.
Oh, you got some.
Well, yeah, you can pick up a 3 gigabyte 1060 for $280, a 6 gigabyte for like $330. So the price is, that's actually $30 or $40 down from last week.
Wow.
This is good.
Okay.
So, you know, kind of the Bitcoin, Ethereum mining craze seems to have peaked and is dropping down.
Oh, finally.
Finally.
Oh man.
Our long
I can get back to my gaming.
National worldwide gaming nightmare is actually almost over, which brings us to a great Facebook question from Alex.
So Alex said, hey, what's your thoughts on purchasing GTX GPUs that were used for mining? Worth the gamble for the price markdown versus new or refurbished? And again, that's from Alex.
The TLDR is it depends on how risk averse you are and how much they're charging for the cards.
Good point.
So I asked a couple friends of mine. One of them has a couple 3 dozen GPUs in the garage. Actually, it turns out he has 76 GPUs in his garage. The other writes about gaming hardware, including GPUs. And I have decided to hide their names, but imagine, if you will.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, you know, there was a great article on 1,000 years ago on Medium, like last summer. Ethereum cryptocurrency mining keeps on affecting NVIDIA and AMD GPU supply. And this is a really serious kind of data mining warehouse. These are all GPUs, I think. They sure all look like GPUs to me. And here's like, oh, look, another GPU mining rig. And you get the idea at this point. So friend Alpha, the crypto miner, says, I honestly wouldn't care either way as long as the card was not dusty or mechanically worn. If anything, a few months of heavy usage helps weed out the infant mortality failures more quickly. So long as there is a decent amount of warranty remaining, I'd say it's relatively safe to buy used.
Okay.
We'll get back to that in a second. Would you like to be Omega?
Sure. So then we have friend Omega, and they said, I am going to disagree with Alpha a bit on this one. Essentially, even if you consider an average gamer as someone that games 4 hours a day, which I would actually think is very high, you are looking at a card that is 6 times the usage on it compared to a card running mining 24/7. So if you think the average is 2 hours a day for a real gamer, then you are looking at 12 times the usage on a mining card. So there is merit to the argument that you would weed out the early death syndrome that some GPUs experience. But after that, I don't think there is any positives to having a card that was used for mining. He also said, I would only recommend people pay under the original expected MSRP of that product. How much will depend on how the market pans out. So I'm glad your friends reached out and were able to answer those questions for us.
Yeah.
Two very differing opinions.
Very differing opinions. And I have always been I've always been brought up with the idea that silicon never actually wears out.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I've had motherboards blow. I've had transistors on motherboards blow. I've had transistors on GPUs or other components release the magic smoke and the scent of flaming, electronics part. Then I found an IEEE article, IEEE Spectrum, Transistor Aging. This is pretty old. It's like 2011. That discusses, just weird to me to think about transistor aging, but the actual aging processes in transistors. And suddenly the idea of silicon having a finite lifespan seemed way legit for me because silicon can actually fail. It's just very, very rare to actually see a chip fail. More likely that the board that it's on will fail. But, there's like several different phenomena. I'll put a link to the article on this because this gets super nerdy super quickly. But the idea is that you can basically wear out the gates in the transistor, which is just weird for me to even think about. So I went back to Alpha and asked about the failure rate he's seen. And it turns out, again, he's running, wait for it, 76 GPUs across 19 mining boxes. He's had 9 cards fail all within the first 60 days of purchase.
Wow.
So that's literally like 10% of his cards failed.
Wow.
Every single card he's been to be able to identify on the board, the little bit that was attached to the surface mount component or the capacitor or whatever it was that went poof, flamed out, and released the magic smoke.
Huh.
He also spent extra for EVGA boards with a 3-year warranty, not a 1-year warranty. They have a couple different, they have different models, and some models have better warranty than others. The longer warranty should mean that they have better cooling and possibly higher quality components on the board. And cooling is a big deal when you're running cards 24/7, especially if they're actually inside a case. Notice none of those pictures we showed earlier, the cards were all exposed to maximize the heat transmission. So those warranties are transferable. So I'm thinking if you buy a used board, make sure that it's cheap. I'm with Omega here, well under MSRP sounds smart, and see if you can score the warranty along with it. And buying from a friend is probably better than buying off eBay.
I would trust buying from a friend more than eBay just because of previous experiences with secondhand technology on eBay. So it's up to you though. Go for it if you feel like it.
Caveat emptor, man. Let the buyer beware.
Let us know if you have any other questions about GPUs. Most likely for gaming and editing, since that's what I do, not necessarily mining. But let us know your questions. Ask at TekThing.com, or you can tweet at TekThing, at Snubs, and at Patrick Norton. We get these questions a lot. One would be, what VPN should I go with? Totally makes sense. And the other one is XYZ VPN a good one? And it's honestly such a hard question to answer. I mean, I could give you my recommendations, but since there are literally hundreds of VPNs, it would take us together years to review all of the ones that are available.
Yeah, and just because a VPN works particularly well in our area doesn't mean it will necessarily work particularly well in your area.
Good point, yeah.
And the more obscure a VPN is, the less likely we are to be able to give you any useful information because we don't know anybody that's used it.
It's true, and worse even, if a VPN says that they are not logging any data, who knows if they are telling the truth? So some of my security friends were sharing this on Twitter, and I thought that it was an excellent write-up. It's over at TheBestVPN.com. Basically, 26 out of 100 plus VPNs collect and store important log details about users, and it's tough to find this information in their policies, including, and if I scroll down a little bit, PureVPN, who does some logging despite being advertised as no logs.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
And we had a big question earlier this year that somebody's like, well, I know you guys use PIA, but what about PureVPN?
Right.
And the truth is anybody on the internet could be like, hi, I'm Patrick.
Hey.
I'm a VPN.
Hi.
I collect no data. How are you going to know?
Yeah.
It's a trust game.
Yeah, so actually, if you look at this PureVPN information, they claim no logs. In their policy, they state, we do not monitor user activity, nor do we keep any logs, so on and so forth. The actual logs that they collect are your name, email address, phone number, IP address, and that's a big one, bandwidth data, and connection timestamp. So they can tell whenever you are connecting to that VPN. So it's a really big deal for somebody to be like, we don't log, but then they actually do log certain details about you.
So what they really mean is we don't log what's running through our VPN.
Yeah.
But we do track you.
but we do track you. Another 26 on this blog do not collect any logs at all, and this includes my favorites for consumers, which I have personally reviewed. Those are PIA VPN, which we both use, as well as TunnelBear, which has
the cutest logo ever.
An adorable logo. So of course I was like, I have to check this out. And they do third-party auditing, so I was like, I definitely like them. Now, while the last 63 VPNs in this report do log some details, they don't log important files about you. So like where you're traveling to and stuff like that. But they do log things like your billing info because they have to, I guess.
They have to pay you some way. Well, does it matter that, say, PureVPN logs your IP address?
It would matter to me because I don't want anybody logging my IP address, but that might not affect you at all. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for in a VPN.
So to kind of shorten things out, you have a list of things of what to look for. Because again, there's too many VPNs for us to review. So here's what you should be looking for if you're not going to go with one of the VPNs that we've recommended.
So what should you look for? Price, their security policy, and the speed. So of course a faster VPN may cost more, but it also has a better security policy, for example. A slower one might be free, but it also lacks a good security policy because it's free and they like sell ads to actually make money back or something like that. It's always a possibility. So first off, price. It's entirely up to you and what you can afford. I ended up setting a yearly maximum budget that I can afford for a VPN, and then I stick to that budget. Luckily, you can find affordable VPNs with no logging policies for around $5 per month. So, when I say no logging policies, I mean they don't log, and that's in their policy. And sometimes it could be a lot less. Also, I have noticed since I opened up my first VPN, I see coupons all the time for really good VPN providers. Like TunnelBear does half off around the holidays. I've seen PIA VPN do coupons, like if you do a yearly as opposed to a monthly deal. So you can get some really good deals with VPNs. And then you have speed, which varies depending on your location and the server that you choose to use, as well as your ISP's natural speed too, because you're still going through an ISP to get to wherever you might end up going. So a VPN will be slower. That's pretty much going to be an issue with any VPNs because they are encrypting that data and sending it through that VPN.
It can be pretty brutal. And one ISP I've used, any VPN, because of the encryption, slowed your speed down by 50%.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't had that much of an issue.
That was, but it was also a super fast. It took you from like a max of 200 megabits per second down to 100 megabits per second. But it was a penalty on that one.
And I've noticed similar issues with if I chose a server overseas somewhere for my VPN. Like one time when I was trying to buy Studio Ghibli tickets for the Tokyo Museum for Studio Ghibli, I had to use a VPN that was in Japan. The website that I was trying to access was a lot slower while I was using that server for that VPN access. And that was just going to happen anyway because I was going overseas. It's a very far away for that VPN to travel.
It's also like bandwidth itself. The more, if it's Saturday night and everybody's watching, Netflix, there's probably a lot of people using a VPN.
ISP's natural speed. So yeah, that's going to be an issue. Many VPN providers, though, luckily do offer month-to-month payments, or they offer a free trial so you can test them before diving in for a full year of service or something like that. So you won't end up paying like $50 just to find out that it's so slow you can't do anything. So I would suggest in that case, definitely use the free trial and look into month-to-month as opposed to paying for the whole entire year at the very first time that you've opened up that VPN. And then there are security policies. So you want to look for a VPN that does not log timestamps, bandwidth, traffic, DNS requests, your IP address, device type, or personal details. They probably do collect some kind of payment information so that they can actually process your payments, and that's understandable, unless they accept alternative forms of payment, such as digital currency, like if they accept Bitcoin, which has become more and more common, or gift cards. PIA VPN, for example, does offer the ability to pay with gift cards. I don't do that because I'm lazy and I don't want to go buy gift cards every time I want to pay for my VPN. So I'm just like, I'll use my credit card, whatever, you can have my billing information, I don't care. But if you care about that, if you want to hide your identity enough, That's a total possibility. Now, I will, again, bring up that oneprivacysite.net. It's one of my favorite websites for checking if all of these VPNs do log all of these data about you, because it's very hard to find this information in the policies. And I know that, and so does this website. So they've listed it out with no's and yeses, depending on which things that all these different VPNs do, and they have hundreds in this list. 182 entries. So that's quite a few that you can look into.
Something I want to remind people if they've never used a VPN before, you may not care who's logging your information because you just want to use it in the coffee shop to make sure somebody taps into what you're doing. There are services that will not work over a VPN. My bank doesn't want to work over a VPN. There are many brokerage firms that don't work over a VPN.
Does Netflix work over a VPN yet?
Netflix, much like Major League Baseball, actually actively fights VPNs because they don't want people to sort of geolocate themselves around, for example, the blackouts for Major League Baseball, or so you don't access other countries' offerings on Netflix.
So it's still an issue for certain providers whether or not you can actually access their websites. Some people do block it. Then there's another issue. It's the 5, 9, or 14 eyes, depending on where you look and where you're Googling it about. So these are a series of countries that have agreed to share all sorts of different data amongst each other as a surveillance alliance. This was originally used during the Cold War so that they could, share war techniques and stuff like that. But it's kind of grown into surveillance too. Yeah, they were sharing intelligence during the Cold War, but now it's turned into like war techniques. I know. My description.
That sounds like, that sounds like a Tristan thing. I'm perfecting my war technique.
But it has ended up turning into kind of a surveillance thing. So if you are very, very concerned about surveillance, you might want to look into getting a VPN that is located in a place like Switzerland, which is not in the 14 eyes. So it's something to consider, definitely. Other questions to ask are, does your VPN offer open VPN protocols so that you can use your own configuration? I know a lot of my hacker friends, including myself, really like using OpenVPN, especially if it's easy to set up, which is definitely a possibility. Are there cross-platform? It would be great if you can use it on your mobile phone. It would be terrible if you use it at home on your laptop and then you leave the house and you don't have that VPN available to you anymore. Can you connect on multiple devices at once? Some charge extra for more than one device. Do they get third-party audits? So far, the only one that I know of that does third-party audits is TunnelBear, but that might have changed, so if it has, let me know. And do they have DNS leak problems? We're going to mention DNS a lot more in the next segment about Cloudflare, which I'm super excited about, but you should definitely consider, is your DNS getting leaked in some way from that VPN? Use all these questions as analysis to start your search for a VPN, and you should be able to get up and running on a consumer-grade VPN in like no time. Luckily, it's really easy to set them up these days once you pay for it or once you start that free trial. I do want to know what VPN everybody out there uses as well, so you can comment below and let me know about, and if you care about any of those logs. I know a lot of people don't. They just want to use the VPN to, access the Studio Ghibli Museum in Tokyo, but some people want to use it for other reasons. So ask at TekThing.com or tweet at TekThing or comment below. I would love to know your VPN inquiries and what you use.
We love your questions, your tips, and your suggestions of products and ideas to check out. Ask at TekThing.com is the place to send them, or you can tweet at TekThing, at Snubs, or at Patrick Norton. And a big shout out to our patrons at patreon.com/TekThing. They pay the bills, they make the show possible, and frankly, y'all keep my family fed. Thank you, patrons. Join the crew that makes TekThing happen at patreon.com/TekThing.
We got a tweet on Twitter from Terry, aka Gotham Heights TX. I don't know, maybe he would do a DM or something. Who knows? I guess that would still be on Twitter.
Sorry.
So Gotham Heights TX, I'm assuming that's Texas, says, what are your thoughts on the news of 1.1.1.1? Is there an easy way for a newbie to set up 1.1.1.1? So for anybody that doesn't know, that's the new Cloudflare thing, which everybody is super excited about, but I feel like we should probably explain it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, look at this. You're 2 minutes away from browsing a faster, more private internet.
Ooh.
Yeah, actually, and they get pretty big into the whole privacy thing, but let's talk for a second about what exactly DNS is, or the domain name service. DNS resolver, recursive DNS service. This gets super geeky super fast. So essentially, DNS is the telephone book for the internet. Anybody under the age of 30
it makes sense,
probably
though.
can't remember telephone books, but it's what turns a URL you can remember, say TekThing.com, into a dotted quad IP address like 1.1.1.27.14. 999, whatever that goes to. I'm really sorry about the traffic. That identifies the server you want to talk to. And this is an interesting idea of DNS security because, like, back in 2010, DNS became a big deal because Google launched its 8.8.8.8 DNS service, or 8.8.4.4 as their secondary, with the idea that they were going to provide a much faster service than what else was out there. Privacy is kind of a new angle on this. In Cloudflare's, we will never log your IP address the way other companies identify you. And we're not just saying that. We've retained KPMG to audit our systems annually to ensure we're doing what we say.
Cool.
Which, as Shannon pointed out in the whole segment about VPN.
Auditing is good.
Yeah. Because that means you've had a third party come in and bet their reputation on whether or not you're doing what you say you're doing. And they're really excited about this at Cloudflare. Frankly, we don't want to know what you do on the internet. It's none of our business, and we've taken the technical steps to ensure that we can't.
Cool. Okay. So far everything sounds good.
Yeah. So, and one of the things, so we talked about DNS leaks before.
Yes.
So there are DNS services. There are VPN services where all of my traffic is going through the VPN. Mm-hmm. It's encrypted.
Yes.
It's private.
Because it's TCP.
But because they suck, every time you look for a website, it goes through your regular connection, and your ISP knows everything you're browsing, which may defeat the purpose of using your VPN.
That would be your DNS leaking. So encrypted browsing doesn't mean that you are secret or that you keep your DNS resolver from knowing the identity of all the sites that you visit. Mm-hmm. So that means by default, your ISP or every Wi-Fi network that you are connected to, or wired network, or whatever it might be, your mobile network provider, they have a list of those sites that you have visited while you are using them. So if you use Google's 8.8.8.8 DNS service, or Comcast's, if you're on Comcast ISP, your default DNS gateway is probably Comcast DNS, they know exactly what websites you are hitting. Mm-hmm. So kind of like those VPN DNS leaks where your packets are protected, but your ISP can still tell you wherever you're going, it's the same issue. Yeah, so if you really just want to not share what you're doing, or another reason for using a third-party DNS is because your ISP automatically blocks certain types of traffic or traffic to certain websites. And in the case of something like OpenDNS, you may have put OpenDNS on your router in your home to make sure your kids can't get access to a whole range of sites. You just want to black hole them. From the privacy perspective, Cloudflare flat out says we don't store client IP addresses, never ever, and that Cloudflare will never store any information in our logs. It identifies an end user, and all logs collected by our public resolver, because they kind of have to keep logs, will be deleted within 24 hours. We will continue to abide by our privacy policy and ensure that no user data is sold to advertisers or used to target consumers. Which is one of the reasons why I actually changed the DNS server for the first time, because my ISP had discovered that a wonderful source of revenue is every time the DNS server can't find a web page, instead of giving you, it's an error, it's not there, they would give you a giant page full of ads that they were getting money for. Is this the new ISP?
No,
okay.
No. This is going back years ago.
Okay.
Although there are a whole bunch of DNS services, some from ISPs, some from third parties, that cheerfully generate revenue, not just from selling your data of what people are browsing, but also serving you ads whenever the DNS system cannot find a web page.
So this started me on a whole entire rabbit hole of DNS over HTTPS, because if you go over to Cloudflare's blog, they say DNS Resolver 1.1.1.1 supports both emerging DNS privacy standards, DNS over TLS and DNS over HTTPS, which both provide last mile encryption to keep your DNS queries private and free from tampering. So DNS goes over UDP packets, which are unencrypted, and that's the way it has been for decades. Cloudflare, along with some other really big names, are trying to make DNS over HTTPS, which uses TCP packets instead of UDP, and HTTPS with TCP is encrypted, a thing. So this sounds really good.
Does it exist yet?
So yeah, does it exist? That's the big problem. So this means that those VPNs with those DNS leaks, that wouldn't be such a big problem, and everybody would have better security automatically. Woo-hoo. Now, since Let's Encrypt, which we've also talked about, made HTTPS certificates so much easier and free to implement, it's becoming a reasonable change. So we're starting to see a lot more upheaval of HTTP becoming HTTPS, and people starting to use this much easier encryption.
So that's for websites, right?
Yes.
We call it, HTTPS everywhere that forces encryption to give you a better, a more secure connection to a website. However, you have to get everybody on board to make the entire internet the same encryption. Right. So even these huge agencies are trying to get it implemented as the default packet option. If you check out datatracker.ietf.org, they have a whole bunch of information about DNS over HTTPS. And you scroll down to the bottom, and I love that the name is DOH. D-O-H. Yeah, it's so funny. If you scroll down to the bottom, you see milestones. So April 2018, so this is this month, they just did this. They submitted specifications for performing DNS queries over HTTPS to the IESG, which is another protocol agency, for publication as a standard. So they also have a draft of the information that you can download over there. Needless to say, this is going to take years for all of these agencies, all the companies, all the manufacturers to make DNS over HTTPS the default. But we are starting to see these changes now, and Cloudflare is the first one that's actually implementing this, and they're working on that implementation. So this is a big deal, and it's very, very important for security of everybody, as opposed to just the ones that are paying attention to it like we do. Yeah, I mean, I love, this is from an article in 2014 on Mike.com where Turkish protesters were spraying 8.8.8 and 8.8.4.4 to help people deal with what was going on with the Turkish government at that time. But this was graffiti that was all over the place over there. So I've used OpenDNS originally for testing, and then I've resorted to it when I had issues with, a long time ago, my primary ISP was like dumping ads at the time. I've moved to Google for performance improvements. I recently changed DNS providers for a couple days because my ISP had a glitch and I kept getting errors where web pages wouldn't resolve. So I temporarily switched to a third-party ISP, probably Google. Trying out a new DNS server is really, really easy, right? You go into Windows 10 here, you open up the control panel, you go to Network and Internets, go to the Network and Sharing Center, open up whether it's Ethernet, the adapter settings you want to change, whether it's Ethernet or in this case it's wireless. You're going to go down into Properties, and this is where the fun part stuff, because you can get into a lot of trouble by changing the wrong thing inside of here. So we're just going to go to Internet Protocol version 4, TCP IPv4.
Because you're probably not using IPv6 yet.
Right. Well, and if you are using IPv6, you probably don't need this tutorial. Just saying, because you're elite hacker. And then you go down to use the following server addresses. And in the case of Cloudflare, it's pretty easy, right? It's 1.1.1.1. And I think it's 1.0, goodness, 0.0.0, right? And if you wanted to use Google, it would be 8.8.8.8 and 8.8.4.4, just like we saw in the graffiti in Turkey. But for fun, I'm just going to switch this to Cloudflare because I am a test weasel. And hopefully I got those right. And then you basically hit OK, and you are good to go.
Yay!
Yay. There are a bunch of stuff you can do with DNS and DNS filtering. OpenDNS Home, it'll filter content at the DNS level. I mentioned that before. You can customize it. You can block phishing sites with it, stuff like that. Along with running it on your Mac or Windows machine or your Android phone or your iOS phone, most routers just find the DNS settings for the router and punch in the dotted quads for that. And you can basically, everything that connects to your Wi-Fi network in your house will now run over your new DNS server.
Yay.
The other big claim you see is like OpenDNS says it now, Google said it back in 2010, Cloudflare is saying it now, and it's a big part of this, speed up your internet. And if you look at DNS Perf, which is basically monitoring DNS performance, they're showing 1.1.1 being way, way faster than Google, for example. I think they were like 20 milliseconds faster. And faster actually than OpenDNS, and OpenDNS is probably way, way faster than whatever service you're using, although you notice they don't have all of your local performance numbers. I personally, I think it depends on how many issues your DNS had, because we're lucky around here. I ran this at home last night. This is Steve Gibson's DNS benchmark, which is similar to Namebench, which is a 20% project at Google. And for like level 3, I'm pretty sure our packets have to go over level 3 to get to Cloudflare, because I was looking at cache times of 0.009 or like 9 milliseconds.
Wow.
And there's Cloudflare, their goal of 1 millisecond or 10 milliseconds. It's crazy to kind of look at these numbers, but we also have 2 massive data centers. Like
they're like right next door.
Yeah, we can shoot an arrow and hit one, and we can drive for 5 minutes and get to the other one. These huge colo locations. So I also, if you're in a situation where, like, looking at this DNS benchmark, if we scroll down to the bottom here, if you're in one of these situations, like, it probably, well, that's not replying, so that's no good. But you know what I mean? Like, the longer these times are, the more likely you are to see an improvement. And Cloudflare says they're going to be opening up thousands of locations. And that makes it really interesting, because I think most people, the farther you get from like one of those data centers, the longer your DNS lookup time is, and your uncached DNS lookup time gets massive. Sometimes it's like 10 or 15 times as long. So in that case, it might actually show a performance, but I don't know if you're going to see, I don't think it's going to be like, going from DSL to cable modems.
To fiber.
Right. But if you constantly, like, again, one of the times I switched was because I had a DNS service that kept serving broken pages for major websites.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is not that website.
So you can try it out and see if Cloudflare does help with your speed, and you can test out all the new security that they are implementing. Of course, much of that is going to take a few years for everybody else to implement as well, but it's a really good start, and I'm very happy that Cloudflare decided to do this. I think it's awesome for everybody, and it gives us another option over Google in case you want to change your DNS gateway. So good on you, Cloudflare. We like what you're doing. Let us know if you have changed your DNS gateway, or if it has helped improve your speed or performance. Here we don't see that big change, but elsewhere you probably do. Let us know in the comments below, or you can tweet us at TekThing, or at Patrick Norton, or at Snubs. We got another tweet from Salvador, and he says, Patrick, I was wondering, I have $800 that I can use to purchase headphones, and I was wondering if you could give me some ideas. I like the planar magnetic. I was thinking of Mr. Speaker's AEON. Thank you, Salvador.
I love Mr. Speaker's AEON Flow.
Oh, really?
Seriously, if there is a better headphone for $800 than the AEON Flow, I don't know what it is. It's as good or better than some cans that cost 2 or 3 times as much. There are some in-ears that cost twice as much that sound like ass by comparison. They will get the best from any amp or DAC you pair them with, and I should probably show you a picture of them. They do an open version and a closed version. So they have a sealed back version, that was the original, and an open version that opens up the sound stage a bit. Just make sure you've got good source material. Don't be listening to compressed.
Like use FLAC or something instead of your
use
compressed
FLAC.
MP3s?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Pay for the premium tier of Spotify, get Tidal.
Gotcha.
And I know $800 sounds ridiculous for a lot of people, but seriously, these will bring out all of the detail and awesome of any track you run through them. They will show the best or worst of any DAC or amp you pair them with. I think they're as good as Mr. Speaker's Ether C-Flow, which, by the way, sells for, whoa, $1,800.
Whoa.
Yeah. Which is a lot of money for a set of headphones. But, if you think of it as like, I could buy a $20,000 set of speakers, or I could buy a $800 set of headphones.
Which are you going to choose?
Yeah, So for those of you freaking out over $800, let's start at the beginning. Okay. Monoprice's beloved premium hi-fi DJ style over-the-ear pro headphones with mic, $16. Sony's MDR 7506 professional large diaphragm headphone.
Yes.
$80.
We love those.
Yeah, USA, I should say, one more triple drivers in-ear headphones sell for $100. We've seen them on sale for as little as $70. Wow. That is one of the best deals in audio out there. A classic, Grados SR80E Prestige Series headphones. They sell for $99 on Amazon.com. Nice. Made in Brooklyn, USA. AudioQuest Nighthawk Carbon semi-open around-the-ear headphones. My day-to-day, everyday use headphones. They are fantastic. They are now selling for $400, which is way less than what they originally sold for. And something new, one more is triple drivers. They decided to do a triple driver over-ear headphone. And it's a little, it's funny, it's a little smooshy. It's very, very soft. So they're kind of like on ear and over ear.
Touch them.
Here, put them on your head. They feel nice.
I'll put them on my head.
They sell for $250 and they punch way above their weight class. There's multiple drivers in them, which kind of scared me because it sounds like a gimmick. They have a separate tweeter and woofer, and it's really kind of two drivers, the tweeter, the woofer, and a passive radiator that acts like a port to give the low end more authority. It's really authoritative. If you like bass, these are
pretty
good.
comfy.
They are really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a thud to the opening of Daniel Radcliffe's SOB. You know, that this really brings to your ears some lovely high-end details on cymbals. It nails voices. Not bad for $250. Those just came out recently, and they are very, very comfortable.
Have you reviewed these yet?
That is pretty much the review and the thumbnail. Well, they just came out, and you've heard me talk about every other headphone on that list, but yeah, if you got $800, Mr. Speaker's AEON is one of the finest headphones you can buy, period.
Wow. Technolust.
$800 makes you panic. We got you started at $16 there.
There you go.
Oh my goodness.
All right, that about wraps up this episode. But remember, once in a while, put down your phone, step away from your screen, close that laptop, and do something analog. Like Brian, who wrote in, I did something analog last Sunday. I hiked over a mile to the top of the bluffs near my home south of Denver to watch the sunrise and eat my breakfast. I took a panoramic photo of the Rocky Mountains.
Outstanding.
Brian, that's beautiful. I'm jealous.
Usually I'm just trying to keep the kids from tearing down the house and eating.
That's beautiful.
I should make them carry their breakfast up to the Oakland Hills to watch the sunrise.
You should.
Shannon says I have to take you guys to watch the sunrise. Out of bed, but it's still dark. Go!
Next time they see me, they'll be like, why'd you do that to us?
It was that or change the DNS addresses on the router again.
Oh.
I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Shannon Morse.
We'll see you next week on TekThing. Have you ever tweaked the DNS in your router?
I have a couple of times. When I was living back at home in Missouri, I did, and it seemed to help my speed, but you know, it was just a little bit that actually helped. My husband just changed his like a week ago to Google's DNS.
Oh, funny.
Yeah, because he was like, I can't open websites. My friend on PUBG told me to change the DNS, and I was like, how'd I know? And I could have shown you how to do that, because it took him like 2 hours to figure it out. But
like many tech professionals that work on the internet and on YouTube, Shannon and myself find that our spouses often decline to consult with us before making technical repairs to the products at home.
One time he bought a keyboard and it came in and I was like, I'm pretty sure I have this keyboard. And then I checked in the garage and I was like, I already have this keyboard. Do you want mine? And just return yours. And he was like, oh, because I had already purchased one myself. And then I had upgraded it and I put that one back in the box and I was planning to like sell it on eBay, but never got around to it.
And now he has 2 keyboards.
I was like,
one for each hand.
Why don't you ask me these things? Ask me what you want. Tell me about the tech that you want to upgrade and I can give you recommendations. I do this for a living, honey.